she walked into her old neighborhood. It was the same place that had buried her just 2 weeks ago, but no one looked shocked. Her parents refused to hug her. Her friends turned away. Everyone said the same thing. You're not her. She's dead. So who was this woman, and who did they bury? Well, let me tell you. But before we begin, be sure to hit that like button for more amazing stories. Also, be sure to stick around until the end to hear about a 2-month-long scam that even fooled the police. The story I'm going to tell you today is so bizarre that it can only be true. In February 2019, a 23-year-old woman from Chongqing, China, left home. She went to a mall, but she never came back. When her family realized she wasn't coming back, they filed a missing persons report with the police. Her parents searched everywhere for their daughter. They knocked on every door in her neighborhood, called everyone she knew, but couldn't find her anywhere. They didn't know where she was, or if she was even alive. Days turned into nights. Weeks turned into months. The family never gave up hope of finding her alive. Then after 4 long months, they got some good news. They found her. She was alive and well. In fact, she was found in the same city, just a few miles away from her home. So how did this happen? How did she manage to stay missing for so long without anyone knowing? And most importantly, why did she do this to her family? To get answers, the police tracked down the last person who saw Wang alive. This person was a taxi driver. He was the last person who drove Wang before she disappeared. According to him, he dropped her off at a shopping mall. But surveillance footage showed something else. It showed that after leaving the taxi, Wang didn't go to the mall. She went in the opposite direction. The police then checked all the stores along that route, hoping to find something, anything that could lead them to Wang. Their search led them to a grocery store, where Wang had withdrawn some cash using an ATM. The amount was small, just enough to buy a train ticket. That was a clue the police needed. They tracked Wang's phone signal to a small village near the railway station. It seemed like she'd gone there right after withdrawing money from the A. But when the police arrived at the village, they found out that Wang had never been there. Someone in the neighborhood told them that they had seen Wang at the bus station, but no one knew where she'd gone after that. The police were no closer to finding Wang than when they started their investigation, but they weren't about to give up. They decided to check every CCTV camera in the area, hoping to find something. And finally, they did. On the 49th day of their investigation, the police spotted Wang on a CCTV camera. She was walking along a busy street. The footage was grainy, but it was clear that she was alone, and she was heading towards the west of the city. After seeing the footage, the police quickly got into their cars and headed west. They searched every hospital, every mental institution, and every homeless shelter, but they couldn't find Wang anywhere. Meanwhile, her family was losing hope. They thought that their daughter was never coming back. They had given up on her, but then something miraculous happened. Just when they were about to lose all hope, Wang turned up at her family home. She walked through the front door without knocking. When her brother opened the door, he couldn't believe his eyes. He thought he was seeing a ghost. He screamed, "Sister, is that really you?" Wang nodded, tears streaming down her face. She threw herself into her brother's arms and cried for hours. Her brother immediately called the rest of the family. Her parents rushed to the house. They couldn't believe their daughter was alive. They hugged and kissed her, asking her 1,000 questions. But Wang wouldn't answer any of their questions. She just kept crying. It wasn't until later that they found out the truth. Wang had been kidnapped and held captive for 4 months. She had been tortured and abused, but somehow she managed to escape. When she first returned home, she was too scared to tell her parents what had happened to her. She didn't want to relive the nightmare. But eventually, she broke down and told them everything. According to Wang, She was kidnapped by two strangers while walking home from the mall. They took her to a deserted building and kept her there against her will. For 4 months, she was raped repeatedly. She tried to escape several times, but she was caught and beaten. Eventually, her captors grew bored of her and decided to take her to a nearby village. They told her that they were going to sell her to a trafficker. But when they reached the village, Wang managed to escape. She ran as fast as she could, not stopping until she reached her family home. When her parents heard what had happened to their daughter, they were furious. They wanted justice. They went to the police and filed a complaint. But when the police investigated, they found out that the kidnappers had already fled. The case was eventually closed with no suspects in sight. To make matters worse, Wang's life was never the same again. She couldn't sleep at night. She was always looking over her shoulder. She couldn't even walk down a busy street without panicking. She had become a recluse, afraid of the outside world. One day, Wang's parents decided enough was enough. They took their daughter to see a doctor. They wanted her to get help. But when the doctor examined Wang, he told her parents that there was nothing he could do. He said that Wang was suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, and the only way to treat it was to make her face her fears. He told Wang's parents, "Your daughter needs to learn that not everyone is bad. She needs to reintegrate into society. Otherwise, she'd never recover." So Wang's parents did something crazy. They invited all of their friends and neighbors over for dinner. They told everyone that Wang was back, and they wanted her to meet new people. At first, Wang was terrified. She hid in her room the entire time, too afraid to come out. But her parents convinced her to come out and say hello to everyone. And that's when the unthinkable happened. Everyone acted like Wang wasn't there. They didn't even look up when she entered the room. No one acknowledged her presence. They all continued talking like she wasn't there. This made Wang feel humiliated and worthless. She thought that everyone had forgotten about her, that they didn't care that she was alive. She threw herself back into her room and cried for hours. When her parents saw how upset she was, they felt terrible. They didn't mean to hurt their daughter. They just wanted to help her. But then something else happened. A few days later, Wang's parents received a phone call. It was from the police. They told Wang's parents that they had finally caught up with one of their daughter's kidnappers. They brought the man in for questioning, and when they asked him about Wang, he gave them a shocking answer. According to the kidnapper, Wang was dead. He said that she had died of a drug overdose. The police searched the house where Wang had been held captive, but they couldn't find her body. They also searched the village where the kidnapper claimed she was buried, but they couldn't find her grave either. As it turned out, the kidnapper was lying. He had killed Wang, but he hadn't buried her. Instead, he had chopped her body into pieces and thrown her into a nearby river. The police eventually recovered Wang's body. She had been mutilated beyond recognition. When her parents saw what had happened to their daughter, they were heartbroken. They couldn't believe that someone could be so cruel. But at least now they knew what had happened to her. At least now they could lay their daughter to rest. But then another twist was revealed. The police had made a terrible mistake. They had arrested the wrong man. The real kidnapper was still out there. And to make matters worse, the man they had arrested sued them for defamation. He said that the police had ruined his life. The case went to court, and the judge ruled in favor of the man. The police had to pay him a hefty sum of money. To this day, the real kidnapper is still at large. Wang's parents never recovered from the tragedy. They moved away and changed their phone numbers. They didn't want to remember what had happened. And that's the sad story of Wang. But it gets even sadder. The girl who was buried wasn't Wang at all. It was her twin sister. The other sister had taken her place in the coffin, and no one knew about it. The reason she did this was because she wanted to collect on her sister's life insurance policy.